Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I'm starting off with a sparkle rainbow vinyl that I got from Hobby Lobby. And it is that 405 vinyl that's usually pretty much always on sale. So I did want to use this for a summer tumbler. I've really never made one. Out of my whole experiences of making tumblers, I've just never made a summer tumbler. So I thought that this would be the perfect time to do one. And so I'm taking my vinyl and I'm just measuring off on my tumbler. This tumbler is pretty much a 20 ounce and it has been stripped of its original epoxy and design. So it's already sticky. So I really didn't have to do much. So I am going in and doing the hinge method. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut a little bit past where I marked it off, just in case I do have to trim it, I don't trim too much off, if that makes sense. But the seam ended up being pretty good, so I really didn't have to worry about that. So once I was finished trimming my vinyl to size, I did just want to go ahead and make sure that I cut it correctly, because this would just be a waste. And it ended up matching up pretty good as far as the seam goes. So I did not end up trimming the seam, but I did go in and pretty much use my tumbler tool where I trimmed the top and the bottom. So I am applying my vinyl using the hinge method, and this is just what's easier for me. And with the hinge method, you pretty much take your backing of your vinyl, you just cut that carrier sheet off, and then you just pretty much apply the sticky part onto your tumbler first. Some people use painter's tape to lay it down just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. I just kind of go based on how I feel that day. And that day, I pretty much just went ahead and applied it on the tumbler as is because the tumbler was pretty sticky, anyways. I believe I used sticker paper for my last design on this tumbler. So once I stripped it, it was already sticky. So I didn't have to do much as far as using like a squeegee or anything like that. I just used my hand. And this is usually how I do all of my hinge methods. I either use my hand or my squeegee. And with this particular tumbler, I just went in and used my hand and made sure that it was flat. And that's pretty much all you want to do when you're doing the hinge method. You want to make sure that it is flush to the tumbler, that there are no air bubbles, and it is pretty flat. So once I have my vinyl flat and on my tumbler, I'm going to take some scissors and cut slits in the vinyl. And this is just going to help so when I take my tumbler trimming tool, I don't have so much of the stickiness. I'm not having to fight with the vinyl. You can use an X-Acto knife if you prefer to trim the top that way, but with the bottom I get a more precise cut when I use my trimming tool, just because I've tried to use my X-Acto knife to cut a straight line around the tumbler and it just never works out. So if you cannot cut a straight line for the life of you, I would suggest getting a tumbler tool where all you have to do is take the tumbler and spin it around and you pretty much have a perfect cut each time you use it. So this is the tool that I was talking about, and I'll link everything that I'm using, all my products and everything in the description box below, so be sure to check it out. I've had this tool for a while now, so I'm not sure if it's still available on Amazon, but I'll probably link something similar. But this is just a really easy tool to trim your edges, so you're not having to do the guesswork and then you're not having to cut wobbly lines that end up just not looking right. So I did do the top and the bottom just because I knew that I was going to glitter the bottom with glitter. So I wanted to trim the top as well just because I did not need that excess vinyl. So you're going to see me take my weeding tool and just kind of get that off there. And with this trimming tool, I can adjust the levels, I guess. I can adjust how high I want it and how low I want my razor knife. So it just kind of gives me an idea of how I want my tumbler to come out looking once I pretty much remove the vinyl. So I knew I wanted some stainless steel to show at the top, and then I wanted stainless steel to show at the bottom so I can glitter my tumbler pretty easy. So we're going in with plastic wrap, and there are a couple ways to do this method, and I should have probably did the other method, but this was what I had on hand. If you want to keep your vinyl from getting any spray paint, glitter, or anything like that, an easy hack would be to use clear transfer tape and adhere it to your vinyl. And then once you are done glittering or spray painting, all you have to do is rip up that vinyl. However, I used plastic wrap and I pretty much just went around the tumbler, and then I used tape to adhere it. I didn't want any spray paint to get at the top of the tumbler, but I also didn't want any to get on the rest of the vinyl that I knew I was not wanting to have spray paint on. So I just took tape and I pretty much taped this whole thing. I pretty much taped all of the plastic wrap on to the tumbler. And then once I was done spray painting, I did let it dry. It was pretty hot on this day. This was actually 4th of July weekend, so it was almost 100 degrees outside. So my spray paint pretty much dried very fast. So once your spray paint dries, you just want to go ahead and remove this. But yeah, this is just a great way, another way, so you don't get any spray paint on areas that you don't want. However, you can also just tape off your tumbler as well. This is just the preferred method, and this is just how I wanted to do it. So, like I said, I did go ahead and tape off the top. I pretty much went in and used some more painter's tape just so my plastic wrap does not move, especially when I put my PVC pipe in there. And I did go in and use Rust-Oleum 2 times, I think flat black. And I just went ahead and I sprayed just the bottom of the tumbler because I knew I was going to use glitter. So once I removed the plastic wrap, this is what was left. I did have some imperfections, but that's okay because I knew I was going to be glittering the tumbler anyways. So I am going in with approximately 20 mLs of epoxy in total. So I did 10 of part A, 10 of part B. And I'm just making sure that this tumbler is coated. So I am doing the epoxy method when it comes to glittering my tumbler. You could use Mod Podge, you can use glitter glue. I just chose to use epoxy because I knew that I was going to seal in the vinyl anyways before I went in and applied my decals. So I'm just applying a very thick, thin, just enough to cover the vinyl and make sure I don't have any streaks or anything like that. And then I will show you what glitter I'm using. I'm using a glitter from Michaels, and I'm not sure what the name of it is, but I'll put it in the camera. And you just want to make sure that you are taking your time with this. Like I said, you don't want to leave any streaks in your epoxy, just because if you do that, it's just not going to cure well. So I'm going in with an extra fine glitter, and it is from Recollections, and it's just in the color black. And I am just taking this at the bottom of the tumbler. And I'm also using it to cover up those imperfections where I tried to use rubbing alcohol to get the spray paint off while it was wet and I messed the vinyl up. So yeah, so we're just going to take the glitter and just kind of move it up a little bit, kind of create like a little ombre so there's not so much of a harsh line, just because that would just not be pretty if there was a harsh line. So you just want to kind of take it, and you'll see me kind of taking it off my turner here, and I'm just going to pretty much let the tumbler or let the glitter fall naturally in the direction of the tumbler. So like I said, so it's not so harsh, because we don't want any harsher or harsh lines when we let it dry. And I already knew that I was going to apply my decals around the black glitter part, so that's why I kind of wanted it to feather upwards towards the tumbler so it can look more natural. And I also glitter the bottom, so you just want to make sure you glitter the bottom. And you just want to make sure that you really pack it on there, just because you can have bald spots once it dries, and that's not cool. So yeah, I pretty much just glittered the bottom, and then I let it sit for 24 hours. And I did not show the part where I sealed my glitter, but I did use adhesive apothecary, and I just glittered, or I just sealed the glitter. That's it. I did not need to seal anything else because the vinyl already has epoxy on it, so it's already sealed. So I just sealed my raw glitter once it dried, and I let that sit for another 24 hours before I applied my decals. So once I let my tumbler fully cure over a period of 24 hours, I am going to go ahead and apply my decals. And I believe I got this decal from Be Glittery. I'll link everything, like I said previously, in my description box below. But I am just taking this palm tree decal, and at first I was going to use it as a full wrap, but the placement of the palm trees just was not where I wanted it to be. So I did cut these out individually, and I placed these on the tumbler individually. With UVDTF, these are pretty much a permanent sticker. So I did go ahead and seal these with my adhesive apothecary as well, just in case I had any pokey bits or anything like that sticking up. I was able to seal it before I applied my epoxy. So with all decals, they do come with a carrier sheet, which is just a backing that adheres to the decal. So you just want to go ahead and remove that carrier sheet, and then you are good to place this wherever you desire. Just remember that once you place it on the tumbler, there is no going back. And if you do make a mistake, you can take these off. You just have to be very careful not to disturb your epoxy. So like I said, I did place these individually around the tumbler, and I just did it with no rhyme or reason. I put some of them directly on the glitter, and then some of the palm trees I put on the actual vinyl, more so fading into the glitter. So it's just kind of a preference. And that's what I love about UVDTF is you can pretty much create any kind of design with them, and it's still going to look good, you know. So I did go ahead and place, I think, about 2 or 3 more palm trees throughout this tumbler, just like I said, around the glitter part. And then I did go ahead and take some more UVDTF decals from my stash, and I pretty much placed them around the palm trees, and they are these little stars, and it just kind of gave it more of a nighttime sunset feel, and it just kind of added more dimension to the tumbler. I didn't go too crazy with the stars because I knew I wanted to apply my vinyl, so I kind of just applied them conservatively and just kind of didn't go too crazy. So if you are a avid UVDTF user, you do have a stash, like me. So these are from a previous wrap. I've just used them for different projects, and these are just the little stars that I was telling you about previously. I just went ahead and applied them in spots that I felt was bare and just needed something to tie this tumbler together. And I just went around and applied them wherever I felt like it, honestly. I pretty much did keep them around the palm trees. I didn't feel like I needed to put them up at the top or anything like that. So I kept them pretty much around where the palm trees were and around the glitter. Like I said, it kind of just tied in with that sunset theme that I was going for, and I think that it came out pretty well. So once I applied all of my decals onto my tumbler, I did go ahead and cut out this font, Forever Chasing Sunsets, on my Cricut, and I don't know the exact measurements of of what I used to cut this, just because when I was uploading this onto my Cricut Design Space, I used my tablet, and I was able to take a picture of my tumbler and actually upload it onto my design space and pretty much take my words or my quote that I was going to use, and I pretty much sized it to the picture. Um, and it was so much easier to do, just because I never measure my quotes when I am applying them to my tumbler. I just kind of go based on how big or small I think it will look, and I end up wasting vinyl. So I thought that that was a pretty easy hack to do, and I will definitely be using that hack going forward. So, how I usually apply my vinyl is I weed everything out first, and then I go ahead and use my transfer tape, and then I take my tumbler and I just stand it up straight, make sure everything is straight, because if it's crooked, then there is no going back. You did all this work, and then if it's crooked, it's just upsetting. So I pretty much take my squeegee and I make sure I get all of the air out of my vinyl. And then once I apply it to my tumbler, I pretty much use a sealer. You can use Rust-Oleum. I use Adhesive Apothecary. It's my favorite sealer. It works for vinyls, glitters, anything like that, anything just that you do not want to lift on your final coats of epoxy. And I like to use just a small coat, a thin coat, and then I go in with my 2 coats of epoxy. So once I went ahead and applied my decal to my tumbler, I did make sure to smooth out any of those finer words that were trying to peel up, and I did go ahead and remove the rest of the vinyl that was in the ease. I did go ahead and weed that out because I find that if I do it on top of my tumbler, it doesn't rip on me, especially with the scripty fonts because they're so thin. It's very easy to rip. So once I did that, I did go in with my last 2 coats of epoxy, and I really did love how this tumbler turned out. It was a great way to use vinyl that has just been sitting in my stash, and it was a great way to kind of get out a summer tumbler, as I've never did one. I never got around to doing one, so I did love how it came out. It was hot this day, so I did sacrifice, standing out on my porch to get this really, really good view of my tumbler. So please let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I can't wait to show you another tumbler.